All right, Shalom Israel, giving all praises to Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai by Shem Rakakadash. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, double honor to the apostles, elders, bishops, great millstone. My salutations to the brothers teaching word for the hopeful elect, soon to be the elect most high will, to the hopeful extended elect Shalom. This is a channel, just getting straight into it, from David Hoffman, and it says, could this ever run on television today, the black man and the white man debate? And the youngster that's speaking in here, this is, I think, specifically, this debate is taking place in Chicago. So you have a lot of West Chicago kids speaking out, teens. And, concerning the truth, it's not it's not a black and white man thing. It's a Esau and Jacob thing. And it's not for monetary gain, money. This is more informational. And the kid is going to talk, and he's going to say something profound that, even these professionals speaking, I don't know, their job title, but they have to even consider. But he says,
they'll start you off with a certain salary start rates, and you would be promoted up to the maximum of the job.
No, I don't believe that. The white man is going to keep you where he got you. You're not going no higher than he wants you to go. And we ain't going to settle for nothing but all the way. And about this violence and non-violence, I'm for violence. Because we have pleaded for the last 400 years.
What would you say, young?
yeah, that's the thing he said. He said, white man has you where he wants you, and you'll go no higher than what he wants. And we talk about that scripture, Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, who and where is he? And it's the so-called white man. Of course, it's not going to say that in the Bible. It's not going to say America in the Bible. It's not going to say the white man in the Bible. But of course, teachers will teach you that what it is and what it does mean. So, and he's right. This is also the doing of the Most High, because we're yet this day in our captivity, we broke the laws of the Most High, therefore we went into captivity. It says that in the scriptures. It says Deuteronomy 28:48, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. Now, who the Lord is talking about, talking to, is Israel, talking about the so-called white men as enemies, and even these other nations, but so-called white men being the main enemy. It says, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger. So when, he has he owns all the stores, the restaurants, black people don't have their own farming system. They don't have a military. They don't have, they have to go to him for what it's going to say. And in thirst, even drinking water, you get it either from, your house, out of the, the faucet, which we don't drink from, or you got to buy it at the store, in plastic bottles, when clearly even a so-called Native American, which is the Gadites, 12 tribes, they said the rivers before the so-called white man got here and colonized the land. They said the rivers were clean, were clean enough to drink from. They had the bottom feeders, which is to clean the ocean. They had, so to speak, gold in certain places. It's also cleanses the water. So, now, uh, the bottom feed is the abomination in the scripture. They're a delicacy on the menus of of almost every restaurant in America. It says, in the nakedness and clothing, you know, even us trying to have our own clothing stores during the 90s, I would say, Fubu, Cross Colors, you know, I think Georgia Bow was one of them, Carl Kanai. He started his own business. He started on the streets. I forget, it might have been Chicago, it might have been in New York or whatever. And he got robbed, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, of his own people, you know, which is our people, But and that's a curse too. It says your eye shall be evil toward your brother in Deuteronomy. I've never heard of any of these um, words and coming from the so-called Jews over there in Israel right now, which was our land. I've never heard them claim this. Never heard them read the scriptures to claim that they're the people, and as far as this applying to them, that they should go uh, to their enemy in the hunger and thirst and nakedness. And it says in the one of all things. So you want your degree, you want your license, you want your, just like the young kid said. He said he gonna keep you where he wants to. So if you know try to get a better job, which is usually the case that Jake wants to follow to become successful, you're gonna have to, uh, and it's of course it's possible, but I've heard from black doctors that this is not a they experience racism in those fields too, whether it be being a doctor, lawyer, a dentist, um, you know, any other position that could be applied uh, for is it's going to be an experience of racism. So even owning your own business is real risky, and you have to have so much money to start it and keep it going. You have to buy all the machinery. It's kind of more easier now because you could do a lot of things online, but still, there's everybody does it now, so it's not really anything as prosperous as it used to be. Prosperous as it used to be, you know. Because if you're selling something, somebody else is a thousand people are selling that same thing online. So it's basically a harder competitive market, where success is not. It's probably more not really that credible now. Anyway, it says, in one of all things, that he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And that you see that in slavery pictures about the yoke of iron upon the neck of black, you know. So the kid was right, man. Like, the so-called white man owns this whole world, and they come in with draconian laws now. They have a military. Uh, they have weapons of war that so-called black man, like he said, he chooses violence, but that won't work either. You know, uh, so this is not a black and white thing. It's an Esau and Jacob thing, and the Most High made it possible in his playbook prophecy concerning those two nations, and those two nations out of Rebecca's womb, one Esau and one Jacob. You know, when there's a problem with society concerning race, it falls on the backs of that's of of those subject matters that go into talking about black and white men, uh, and every other nation is included on that foundation. So it's about those two nations. And the Most High said that. He said all these nations are just their gods are idols, and He cared for nothing about them. So um, going back, and even this is just a ghetto and concerning Chicago ghetto, but there's ghettos all across the world. You know, that's the same thing is happening. So it's designed. It's designed by elite men that they play the mobs. They play. They also play the good guys. They play the bad and the good guys and the bad guys. They play Christian and they play devil. You know. So and then we come and they hate the prophets because we speak in the name of the Lord Yahweh Yahweh Shai, and we speak concerning truth, and we speak through the lenses of spiritual eyes, spiritual glasses, if you will. That when it talks about the black man and the white man, it's really talking about Esau and Jacob. Esau being the so-called white man, Jacob being the so-called black man, and the rest of his family, which is so-called Latino and Native Americans. And that fabric has been knit, you know, spiritually, but they can't see it, and it's been knit historically, which they, lied about, cover up. He's also called the covering cast in the scriptures, because he covered up the truth and told a lie about everything. Even the Dark Ages, he said that it was a time where man had no knowledge about anything, and that's a lie. It was the Dark Ages during uh, our our people ruling in Europe for 1,000 years. Uh, they're called the Byzantine Empire, and that was that time when ran into the caves. It talks about that in Job, that they and Obadiah that they dwelled in the clefts of the rock, and they still have that fashion about themselves today. As you go downtown and see these buildings that are made out of rock, cave, Petra, which means rock, Mount Rushmore, and Mount Seir, and things that pertain to him dwelling in that kind of environment. And those are true. That's true, and it's factual, man. It says Isaiah 25:7, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Yeah, and he did this over all people and all nations, man. And as he colonizes, go from one country to another, colonizing, spreading Christianity and spreading democracy, spreading so-called freedom and liberty, and have these nations buy into his own philosophies, his own dreams, you know, and remaining in the seat of supremacy. So, yeah, that, uh, and now his lies are being uncovered. That's what it says in the scriptures, you know. Um, Shame shall cover him. Shame shall cover thee. He's also known as the harlot in the Bible, because that's America, and America was taken and raped and robbed before it was America. Uh, when the so-called Native brothers were here, they came and murdered and slaughtered. You know, slaughtered them, and built their own ideal of what they wanted of this American world. Which America is named after Amerigo Vespucci, a man that once lived on this earth. So, if you really think about it, in every what do you call it? Every state of America that has ghettos, projects, and slums that are filled with Negroes and Latinos, Native Americans, you can understand. Even the so-called Native Americans being on what you call it reservations, uh, you could see it was designed. You know, like he said, he mentioned 400 years of slavery. It was designed, and then America being built off of slave labor, blood, sweat, and tears of the so-called black man, mainly the rest of the tribes. They were given slums and ghettos, you know, for their reward. You know, so it's all designed, man. And then they got a police state, and they have a police what do you call it, police organization in every state in the ghettos and slums. You know, so it was definitely designed, and that's what the Most High said it would be. Your enemy shall get up on thee very high; you shall come very low. And we know this is because of the curses, but they're not. They're saying that this has nothing to do with biblical proportions, and it does. That's another lie that they told. If they would be truthful about that, then everything would be more clear than what people see it as today. Deuteronomy 28 and 43, it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come very down very low. This is part of the curse, that same chapter, Deuteronomy 28. So if you read 28:15 on down, you have the curses. If you read in the beginning of 28, you have the blessings. But we fit these curses. And if the so-called white man would be truthful, he would say, well, yeah, well, we were brought against you because you went off with your God. It would make more sense to people. But of course, they're going to lie and say, no, this had nothing to do with the Bible. Yet it is, everything lines up as true, But so they were talking about, it's another woman in this clip was talking about her. I think her daughter marrying a black man, and of course, they use the word Negro. Uh, and even these philosophers and all that, they sold out. You know, they have a code of personalities where they try to be poetic and try to act like, just like some Al Sharpton, Jesse Jack guys. They're no longer on the scene. They're old as hell. And they're done. But, back then, that's what kind of shepherds were set up for Israel to follow, meaning the leadership. And it says, Jeremiah 14:2, Judah mourneth, the gates of languish, the leadership languish. They are blackened to the ground, the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. So those are the kind of, this talking about us and our people. This is the woman, she looked like she could be Russian. And this is the woman that has a daughter that is married to a black man. She's talking about how if races come together, the teens, the new generation of teens, and this, I'm pretty sure this is 1960s, if they would, come together and marry into one another, it would be a better world. People would understand each other better. Set aside their differences, learn each other, and Most High didn't never meant it to be that way. And it's not, and it hasn't been. It's not. No matter how hard you push that narrative or teach that kind of way, it never can happen. It never will happen. And it hasn't happened. So this is just the reality of what's going on with the Bible and what the Most Most High is doing, not what man wants. You know, men in this world, especially in America, men have and women have become very opinionated. Well, it's hard to get have an opinion when you're set against your will and trapped. So you know, now that the so-called white man has made that what do you call it? Set that philosophy of you know, do as thou will and speak your mind and all that, and you know, our people been set up to believe that, you know, and it's not really that. Affirmative action, you know, uh, Black Lives Matter, BS, you know, those are all factions of our people getting set up for the run around, you know, waiting for reparations, that type of thing. You know, 40 acres in you know, that was, come on, man, that was never true, and it really never existed. So you could try to be a doctor. You might become a doctor. You might become a lawyer being a so-called black man, so-called Latino. But guess what? You're not gonna. You might not return back to the ghetto because you're making enough money to where you move out of the ghetto, and you're not gonna be helping your own people. Uh, you know, and you might get blackballed or might get, you know, uh, that title might be taken away from you because of ill practice, being blamed by the so-called white man for anything. And then the next thing you know, you either back in the ghetto or, you know, you been sold out. And same thing with the rap industry, hip hop, you know, music, sports, you know, all of it's controlled by them, and you have to do crazy ass shit, you know, abominable type of things to remain relevant in that, you know, field, whatever field you're in, because they own it, they own the world. So yeah, so we just bring out the facts, tying it in together what it this really means. It's not the black man, because they're gonna have that stigma on us forever. You know, it's not about the white man, because they're not really white; they're red. We're not really black. We're different shades of melanin, so to speak. So that's what they want. They want that old. They make. We're moving into a different time, man. We're this is biblical. This is biblical times. It always has been, but it's clearly been seen through prophets, through prophecy. So that's what they want to stop, because they want to go back to that black and white thing. Now we're Israelites, and then they're the so-called they're Edomites. That's the bottom line of things, and I brought that out in the video about it's about Esau and Jacob. Esau against Jacob. It's about them holding us down, you know, making us believe that there's no way but through their system, making us dependent upon them, you know, lying about where we came from, who we are, um, and keeping us under subjection while they rule the world, which is through wickedness, by wickedness, you know, like we said, adultery, idolatry, uh, murder, magic, witchcraft is exercised highly in this place, and there's no law against it. If there was, it wouldn't be happening. You know, so um, you know, we just telling the truth about what the matter is at hand. You know, and like the scriptures say, we're yet in this day in our captivity, but the end of the world is going to come. The triumph of the wicked is short. You know, joy of the hypocrites for a moment. So the end of this thing is coming. That now they want to play Christians again. That's how they are. You know, now the Karens are becoming might be slightly nicer or whatever, or maybe even not. But whatever the case is, Jake is always duped into believing like things are going to get better, but it's not this time. It never was, you know. So anyway, before I talk too much, hope it's edifying. Shalom to the next video.